Hi, John. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited you're here today. And I love what we're about to get into, even though you know that this is going to be entirely organic and we're just going to go with the flow. But you've gone through massive, massive obstacles in your life. You've completely rewired your entire life. You've created a brand new identity for yourself. And I think that is incredibly admirable, especially in your position as a coach, helping others do the same thing and just really deciding that you could be whoever you want and you can construct your life in any way that you want. I find is my favorite topic because I've gone through that so many times as well in my life and realizing I don't want to be this person. I can be whoever I want and I can choose different habits and behaviors in my life and choose to spend time with other people that would fulfill me more or that would help me get to that mission of mine or the purpose as to why I'm here. So John, thank you so much and welcome. And before we get into it, maybe you can just share a little bit about your story.
Yeah, so my story kind of goes with what you were just saying. Like, you can choose your habits, you can choose who you're with, you can choose everything about your life. But if you don't choose, the choice will be made for you.
Mm.
So, in my teenage years and early 20s, I was just kind of a little hoodlum, minor criminal, doing vandalism, that kind of stuff, like all kinds of things I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about on here. But
Absolutely. Go for it.
basically, a lot of small time crime, stealing stuff, doing drugs, trying to sell drugs, all those things. And I just kind of let that take my life on the course it went. And I got lucky that my mom moved us out of there before I got into some serious trouble because everybody I was around, like a lot of people I grew up with, are either dead or in prison right now. And it was just the people that were in my immediate group of friends. So I would have been right there with them. So I attribute a lot of this stuff to, like, I just let things take me where they took me, but I got lucky in that I got out of it because I don't know where I would have been. But in that, it kind of gave me a new start. Although for probably like maybe 10 years of living in a different state, I didn't take advantage of that fresh start. And I just went from that lifestyle to just a party lifestyle because I just didn't have any aspirations.
Mm.
I didn't actually consciously participate in my life. I just kind of was seeking pleasure and seeking validation through. It was weird because it would be like, how drunk can I get, how high can I get, would prove how, like, cool I am, how strong I am in that way. And I realize now that's not the flex. The flex is how much you can not do that, and then you're successful while everybody's just miserable and hating their lives. So it took me quite some time to figure that out. It took a lot of trial and error because, it all started with I wanted to quit smoking cigarettes. And that was such a minor thing. There's people who have quit like way better things, bigger things than that. But it's still like, if you're on cigarettes, you're on cigarettes. I went from like 2 packs a day to nothing. And it was pretty cold turkey. I just decided, whenever I have a craving, I'm going to do push ups. And then that kind of started my trajectory towards health and fitness,
Mm.
although it was just that at that time. But over the years, I got more into going to the gym. At one point, I was running ultra marathons. And the more things I did, the more I was conscious of how what I put inside of me and like how I take care of my body and what I don't put inside of me and what I don't do affects my performance.
Mhm.
And now in my late 30s, I realize how all of that affects your whole life.
Mhm.
Like we were saying, like who you hang around, the choices you make, what you choose to think, like the things you repeatedly tell yourself are what you become.
Yes.
And I used to suffer with a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, and just having more structured routines, building better habits, and all the things that I do now. I I don't even feel like that at all anymore. I might sometimes feel a little overwhelmed, but I can quickly dial myself back in and get back on track. I mean, with kids, it's always a test of patience and how much you can handle when a toddler's throwing a tantrum.
Right.
But it's a complete, like, 180, I'd say, from who I used to be to who I am now. Like, I don't even recognize that person. I wouldn't even hang out with that person.
Right.
I would probably try to talk that person out of everything. Like, people always say, "What would you tell your 16-year-old self if you go back in time?" It's like, I would tell my 16-year-old self a lot. I would definitely make sure that I had purpose and I had routines and I was conscious of where I'm going in life. Because, like I said, if you don't make choices, they will be made for you. And then you wake up and it's 20 years later, you're at a job you hate. You might be married to someone you don't like. You might have all kinds of health problems. And it could have all been avoided if you just made better choices, hung out
Mm.
with better people, gotten better circumstances.
Wow. That's so powerful. So many things that you said today, just I just need to unpack all of it. And I think
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
the first things is how just the absolute truth around, if you don't make choices, the choices will be made for you. And I think deeper than that is we manifest everything around us through our thoughts, right? Whether we consciously or unconsciously realize it, whatever we think is how we create our life essentially. And when our thoughts are self-limiting, when our thoughts are self-deprecating, when we are a reflection of that self-image through these negative ideas and thoughts around ourselves, that ultimately becomes our life. And that's what we end up doing throughout the day in terms of habits and behaviors. And so that's super important. I do want to tap in on this. But the other really powerful thing that you said too was the influence from environment and how important that is. And just that gratitude that you had in the observation of your mom having removed you from your environment and how suddenly that just completely changed the course of your life. And then of course about the reinvention of ourself. And I do want to tap into what was that trigger for you to want to do it. So many questions, but we're going to back up a little bit and just talk a little bit about just that statement that you said that you made earlier, how if we don't make the choices for us, they're going to be made for us. So what do you really mean by that? And how could we take control of our life so that we are in the driver's seat of our lives at all time?
Yeah. So I guess I could start with going back. Like I've thought about in like this process, my life and how I've gotten to where I am and choices I've made and why I made certain choices. And it just seems like there was always this little voice, like your conscience, that tells you, like, you should do this, you shouldn't do that, even if it's the tiniest feeling. And
Mm,
I would always ignore that. I'm learning now to trust my gut, trust my intuition. And back when I was like a teenager, my early 20s, I knew these things were bad and I knew they weren't looked upon as good things in like a greater sense, a universal sense, but to me and the people I hung out around, it was like, "Oh, I'm cool now, like, look what I can do. This is bad, but it's cool to everybody around me." And I didn't really think that that was gonna have I just didn't think, and that's part of the problem, was I was just letting the circumstances control me instead of me control the circumstances. So, what I would say for people listening is to just try and be more conscious of what you're feeling towards any situation you're going into. Whenever there's a choice to make, try and feel what your gut's telling you. And if it's telling you it's the wrong choice, then that's, God, whatever you want to call it,
right.
trying to get that message to you that that's not what you should be doing. You're not in alignment. You're out of
Mm,
alignment with your higher self, whatever you want to call it. And just, I like to think now, and what I tell people to do is just to think about the person you want to be and what they would do. And if it's not in alignment with what that person would do, don't do it.
right.
That's like the easiest way to make good choices and make conscious choices. Like now I want to be a good father. I want to be a good role model to my kids. So I feel like it's easy for me to make better choices because I'm like, would I want my kids ever knowing I did this ever? Like whatever it might be. And I'd be like, no, like they can't ever find out. I'm like if I was gonna sneak off and like smoke crack or something, like that, I don't want my kids to find that out.
Right.
So I'm not gonna do it.
Right.
And that's just like your conscience will tell you that's not what you should be doing. That's bad father things to do.
Right. Wow. So powerful. I love everything you're saying. And you're just a beautiful light, John. I just have to tell you that you're just so inspirational. And I love the message that you're sharing. And I love the work that you're doing. And I 100% support you. And I know that this is going to be big because just that simplicity of that voice in your mind that's already telling you not to do that thing. I think all of us, the majority of us, most of the time ignore it. And I think the reason for that is we're always seeking instant pleasure.
Mhm.
We never think about what is the secondary consequence of me doing this, right? Me cheating on this thing, or me, eating this thing, or me having this thing right now instead of working towards it. And I see this, and I know you're going to agree, around health and fitness a lot. Like, in fact, all the time. Nobody wants to wait 6 months for results or 2 years for results. Are you joking me? Whatever you give me right now that can give me instant results, even though I've been doing this for 15 years, but you could tell me that I can overcome it in 30 days, that's what I want. That's where I'm going to put my money down, right? And so we're in the society where we're actually told that that's what we should do. We should avoid anything uncomfortable or painful right away, but we should always let ourselves get into that temptation or allow ourselves to have that immediate source of pleasure, because that's more important than thinking about the long-term consequences of whatever it is that we're having. So interesting. And what do you think about that? Do you feel like that's something that definitely persuades us, or do you have
Yeah.
another sort of
For
idea
sure,
around
for
that?
sure. So with that, it's 100%. Like we all seek immediate gratification. We're pleasure seeking. I used to do this stuff all the time. I would sleep in till noon and stay up late because I just wanted to like eat junk food and watch TV shows. And now I wake up 4:30 might be the latest I wake up, and it's it's hard. Every day it's, like, hard to get up out of bed. I keep my phone across the room with the snooze button turned off, so I have to get up and turn it off, and it just makes me get up. And then, I'll go into my morning routine and just doing things that are hard first thing in the morning, like, even just waking up early, it gives you that delayed gratification because I know I'm going to have more time to do more work, to like, I like to get work or a workout in before my kids wake up so I can spend time with them. And it just hits those pathways of delayed gratification. And then, like you were saying with fitness and health, yeah, people want it now, like 30-day shred or whatever. And
Right.
sometimes it takes 2 years to get shredded, depending
Right.
how far in the other direction you went.
Right.
And, consistency and time with all things in life will get you big results. Like you go to the gym for a week, you're not going to see anything. You're going to be like, this doesn't work. I'm just sore. Then you go for 6 months and you're like, I'm starting to see results and I don't even feel that sore anymore, or I'm just used to it. I don't know. I live in a state of soreness, maybe, but it's the same with diet. Like, if you're trying to lose weight, you're going to be hungry. That's what weight loss feels like. That's what burning fat feels like. And people will be like, I need it to end now. I need to just eat something. But you're not thinking that you're going to destroy the progress. I mean, I do it still. Like right now, I'm going back on a little recomp because I was training for a marathon and I was like, I can eat whatever I want. And my gut's getting a little chub on it. And I'm like, no, I can't be doing that.
Right.
So yeah, and now I'm like, oh, I'm hungry again, but it's temporary.
Right.
And you got to think about the bigger picture
Mhm.
further down the line, delayed gratification. Like
Right.
right now, I feel a little bit of hunger, and later I get the results I want. And it's just like that being conscious and being like a human being instead of a human animal kind
Right.
of concept because the animal wants to eat. The animal needs
Yes.
that to have a necessity of life. But if you withhold that, then it gives you power because you're holding a necessity back. So
Mhm.
that just gives you a mental edge in so many areas of your life, having that kind of self control. And then you also get to work on your body at the same time. I always tell people like looking good, having a good physique is a byproduct. Like when
Yes.
you go to the gym, when you do a diet, you're building like that mental discipline. You're fixing the rest of your life because you'll have that self control that most people don't have. You'll have that dedication, that just consistency to do work. And that just bleeds into everything else in your life because you want to get results in everything.
Right. Right. Oh, so good. Yeah, and that's work ethic, right? And that's just really mastering the mind, and that's building the muscle of discipline, just like we build our muscle when we're at the gym, and just learning to be uncomfortable. And it's so interesting because this conversation, I think it's really important for anyone listening to just understand just the psychology of the human psyche, right? We're number one, we are guiding our actions, our behaviors of our day based on what we believe we are, or who we believe we are, based on our self-image. Like whoever we believe we are, whatever our identity is, the way that we see ourselves is the way that we're going to show up. It's how we're going to behave, it's how we're going to treat other people. It's even going to make the choices for our own selves based on that. But then the other part too is just understanding that every decision and choice that we make is always based on moving towards pleasure and trying to avoid pain in some sort. And so I love what you said, John, just being a bit more conscious and mindful of that decision before you make it, thinking about, well, if I have this now, which is what I want, because that's what my brain is telling me, that's the animal side of me, right? That's wanting this now, what's going to have later? Right, what's going to happen going forward? And so understanding that the pleasure that is instant right now gives something painful long term, or I can be a little bit uncomfortable right now, I can endure some pain right now, and then seek that long term pleasure. And that's really what I want, because the pleasure of a healthy body, which is not just about how we look, but it's about all the other things. It's about how we feel, and how we do anything is how we do everything. And if I can discipline myself with my physical body and really love myself through the process of my choices around nutrition, around my training, around who I spend time with, around my behavior throughout the day, then I can see that, like you said, bleed into everything else. And I start to become somebody else. I'm no longer that old self image. I'm exactly who I've always wanted to be.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of my favorite sayings. How you do anything is how you do everything, and it's really true. It's like if you keep your desk clean, it's like you're going to keep the rest of your life organized
Right,
because you like to know where things are when you need them.
right.
It's one of those things. If you dedicate yourself to going to the gym, you're going to dedicate yourself to putting in work in other places.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And clutter is clutter everywhere, right? It's energetic clutter. And it's
Mm,
interesting. I was having this conversation with someone this morning, and I was just helping her, just get a bit more organized with her schedule. And that was her big goal. She has a big project. She wants to launch a business, and she wants to work on her schedule. And so what I said to her, well, first thing to do before we even start to get into the schedule is unclutter your life, right? Go through the closet, unclutter what's there, what do you no longer need, what no longer serves you. Have that beautiful space that you're going to come in and work at every single day. Make sure that desk is clean, because the more you start to unclutter things in your life, right? That's physical, that's right in front of your own eyes, whether that's in your kitchen or your closet, you're going to learn how to unclutter your schedule, right? And it's just this energetic transfer, if you will, from something physical to really feeling it. And you do feel better when your desk is uncluttered, or when you start cooking and the kitchen is clean, right? If you start cooking and there's dishes in the kitchen, you already feel that clutter, right? That's already in your way. And so when you understand energy and understand life and success is just about managing your energy, not just your time, but actually your energy, then the way that you look at everything completely changes. And now I know you probably want to add something to that, but I'm just super curious, because this is always my favorite question to ask anybody is, what inspired you? This is probably, I think I'll spend my entire life trying to understand what would inspire a person to go from having that old image of yourself, that old John, to suddenly just, no, this is not who I am. This is not the standard I've ever wanted to set for myself. And I want to make a massive shift. And then you found, I think, fitness as one of the tools to help you get through that. But what was that trigger for you?
So for me, I tried to pinpoint this, and it's hard for me because it's been such a process. I know there's some people who just wake up one day or they have like an event happen and they're like, I need to turn my life around.
Right.
And for me, it was kind of a slow burn. It like again, it started with quitting cigarettes. And I did that for like a girlfriend at the time because she didn't like that I smoked cigarettes. So I was like, okay, I'll quit. And it just led me down this path. I think maybe within the last 5 years or so, probably definitely since I had kids, I've gotten way more strict on this is where I want my life to go. I have to be this person now. I have to achieve these goals. So having kids definitely like kicked it up a whole nother level. And just having a reason, a purpose. Like people are always like, you need a why for achieving any goals to keep you on the path when things get like rough, when you don't feel like doing it, when you need motivation, think of your why. And my kids are my why. So I would say, although it's been a long journey, really getting serious happened once I had kids. 'Cause, I
Mm,
mean, right now I'm 39. I'm probably in the best shape of my life physically and mentally.
love that.
And it's probably been more of a recent thing since I had kids that I need to like I was saying, who is the dad I wanna be? Like, the man I wanna be for my kids. I have 2 sons, like, who do I want them to grow up to be like? I have to model the behaviors, the attitudes, everything, like what I look like, I mean, I couldn't help my hair started falling out.
Looks good.
I mean, just I gotta be that model for them. So yeah, definitely having kids was probably, if there was a point where I made a big decision, it would be then.
Oh, so good. So good. I always kind of I always break it down to those components too when it comes to goal setting. And first it's the what, right? It's understanding, well, what is it that I want to create? And then the other part of it is the why, right? We're always focused on the how, but really it's the what first, make that crystal clear, like so clear and so real what it is that I want to accomplish. And then the why, which is the driving force, right? It's my purpose, it's the reason why I want to do that. And a lot of us don't really think about this deeply enough because it's very surface, right? It's very, I just want to look good and my bikini this summer, or it's my friend's wedding and I want to look great in that dress. And the whys are so shallow, and so it's easy to abandon the ultimate goal when it's not meaningful enough to you. But I think there's this other component which oftentimes we don't think about, and it's desire. And desire is what really, really keeps us focused, what keeps that fire burning to achieve something. Because when we do lose sight of that goal, or when a life event happens, the why is very easily, let's say, not the target anymore, and we're not so connected to it. But it's that burning desire that we have that no matter what will make us refocus. I also think the why can keep changing, because maybe right now it's for your kid, but maybe in a few years it might change. Maybe there might be an ultimate purpose that really keeps you going. But I think that burning desire is urgency, right? You hear someone going to the doctor, they get results back that suddenly they have to make these massive changes, and if they don't, then these are the consequences. And suddenly now that why, because of course they've always had that desire to, or that want to maybe make some changes in their life, but suddenly now there's a sense of urgency. Like, I have to do this now, right? And I think if we don't have that sense of urgency, if we don't feel like we need to do this now, then we also delay that why. Well, I'll start tomorrow, or I'll start next week, or I'll start next month. Or if it doesn't happen, that's also okay. And so I'm always curious, just to maybe tap into that a little bit deeper with you. Is there that difference for you? Did something suddenly become urgent for you? Right? It's very clear you're a very, very intelligent, smart dude, but what made it so like so has to be right now? It's like now or never. Did you have that feeling?
And in a way, yeah, yeah, and that makes a lot of sense that you need that desire and that urgency, or you'll just put it off, because I have done that for most of my life.
Yeah.
And it was probably until I had my kids that wasn't urgent about anything. I worked so many different jobs in my life, and just like graphic design was the steadiest thing I did. But like even that, I would take breaks from it. I would try and do it just for myself or work for other people. And I've done construction, real estate, coaching, like so many different things, so many odd jobs on the sides, traveled a lot. And once I had kids, I was like, I need to start figuring out how to focus on
Mm,
actually doing things that are going to make money for the long term, and also fulfill me, so I don't come home. Because like when I had my firstborn, I was doing like carpentry. I don't even know how I ended up landing in that. It's a long story. But I'd come home, I'd be so burnt out, and I didn't want he was super colicky, so crying all the time, and I didn't feel I had the energy to help him or my wife,
mm,
and I didn't like that. So eventually I decided I need to do something else. That Now I work from home, and I have time to be with my kids when they're here, and when they go to preschool, it's time to work. When they're asleep, it's time to work. And when they're home, I can spend time with them. I can be with them. I have the energy to help my wife out, and she's not doing it on her own. It's because she's also a small business owner.
mm.
So we just have a lot of, we're both doing all these business things and trying to raise a family.
Right.
So it can be hard without each other's support. So just in a way, that urgency of that, like, I need to be helpful. I need to make sure I'm solid ground, with at least being like on the home front, gave me more of a motivation to get myself together mentally, physically, and just
Hold on.
even with work and stuff. Like even now, I'm still always dialing all of these things in. It's always a process. And I just keep that sense of urgency now where I'm just like, all
Mm.
right, like time's running out. The kids are getting older. I need to keep dialing it in, dialing it in, dialing it in. By the time they can understand what I'm doing, I better be so good at explaining it to them that they can just pick up where I left off on things. Like I so I guess that's like the kind of urgency I have. It's not so much of a I'm scared I'm gonna die in 6
Right.
months if I don't
Yeah.
change,
Right.
which I mean, I've fortunately never had an experience like that where I was told if I don't change something, I'm going to die or whatever. I'm bad at going to doctors. Like I'll go to a doctor if I absolutely have to. Otherwise, I'm like, I'll get over it. Like I have that mentality of like I don't need to
Like the
go.
man mentality,
I guess so,
the
yeah.
typical man, "I'm just gonna get over this when it's time to get over it," right?
Right, right, and yeah, so I don't go unless I have to, but
Right.
I've been fortunate health-wise. I mean, my father, when I was 17, 18, passed away from cancer,
I'm sorry.
so maybe that also in my head, like, with my kids, I'm like, "I need to make sure I take care of my health so that I can be
Right.
around for them."
Yeah.
I'm sure that's somewhere in there and, like, the trauma that I have yet to dig into
Right,
deep,
right.
but
That's like the other I know, and the work never
among
ends. That's
others.
what I love about it. It's like layer after layer after layer after layer, and, I believe in life, we don't change, we grow, and a part of that growth is really just addressing those layers and all the traumas and all the things that make us who we are, right? The programming that we're following, not knowing that it came maybe from somewhere else or came from our childhood, and so that's the beautiful work, and again, with that work, when you're aware of it and you have that desire to change, you become limitless. And that's really when you realize that I can become whoever I want. It's really a choice. And it's not going to happen overnight, but it's a choice. And that first step is just to be aware that I don't want to do this anymore and this no longer serves me.
Mhm.
So one thing you talk often about too, and this is just maybe to wrap it up a little bit with environment and also your relationship. I think that's a very big part of your environment, but you also talk about just success around your relationship and just the importance of having that almost that first mastermind being that solid because your personal relationship, your romantic relationship, I believe is your first level mastermind. That's where all the decisions happen. If you're aligned, that looks one way. If you're not aligned, it looks a completely different way. So maybe share a little bit on that if you could.
Yeah, for sure, and it's a daily mastermind. Like I
Yeah.
said, my wife and I are both business owners, and we collaborate on some things we're always behind the scenes with each other, trying to solve problems, and this morning, she's a photographer, I was in her studio installing some brackets to the ceiling for curtains and stuff, being the handyman for the day.
Sweet.
But we'll help each other with that. We lived in Colorado for a while. We used to go on these hikes on this trail and just have like business meetings while we talked and discuss things we needed to do. And it's really like legitimately masterminds. But going back before that, like when we first started dating, we were both just in super party mode. It was literally like all day, every day. We were either high or drunk or whatever. And we just decided together we're going to clean it up
Mm.
and just like stop partying all the time. And I don't know what sparked that. And it wasn't like we just quit everything, we just dialed it back, but it started there and now we're here. And so like everything that we've done together because we've grown together in this way. And that's made our bond so much stronger. Like even like I say all the time, like I've tried every diet from vegan to carnivore, and so has my wife. Like we've done it together. We're trying to figure all the recipes out for these weird vegan burgers that have like 300 ingredients and taste like birdseed, but we did it together. And while I don't think there's any one diet that is better than any other one, it's all individual. You got to figure it out for yourself. But we experiment together in areas like that too. So it's a mastermind in all areas of our lives. And we we try our hardest to be supportive of each other. We try to step in when the other one needs help with something. We try to be encouraging to each other.
Mm.
And there's a lot of times where with the kids, one of us will be just at our wits end and the other one just has to take over, and that just helps get through the days when they're hard.
Mm,
And we both we're fortunate that we both like self-development
right.
personally, and we're both focused on becoming better versions of ourselves. So she'll find something and like share it with me. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm glad you shared this with me. And like vice versa. And sometimes we'll end up just doing online courses together because I'm like, this sounds interesting. You want to do it with me? So we'll do that together. So a lot of it is we share just the experience of our lives together. And we lived in a van for a while at one point. For about 6 months, we just drove around America in a van,
So cool.
seeing places, and a lot of people were like, how are you in that small space with your wife for that long and not drive each other crazy?" And we had a great time. It was some of the best memories of our lives, and we just worked together.
Mm,
I mean, every now and then, we have, like, little rough patches, we'll
yeah,
argue, it's not perfect all the
right,
time, for sure, but overall, we're good teammates. Like, whenever people ask about, like, anything relationship-wise, I'm like, "You gotta be a good team." You're never gonna find this perfect person that does everything you want them to do because 'cause they're their own person.
right.
So, you have to make sure that you guys are a team and you can work as a team. Because if you're both on completely different pages with everything, then it's gonna be so hard to do whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And, like, especially, like, if you're trying to start businesses or get in shape, like, if I decide I wanna be a fat slob and my wife's trying to be on a diet and not have junk food in the house, and I got, like, bags of Doritos and cookies and whatever in the cabinets, it's gonna be infinitely harder for her. Like,
Yes.
my poor kids, we have no junk food in the
Right.
house. We
Yeah.
have, like, fake junk food where it's like, "I'm gonna mix this collagen chocolate protein with yogurt and tell you it's a snack."
Sounds like my house. I love it.
But yeah, it's just being that teammate to each other and making sure that you can support each other in whatever way and not being it's like how can you serve
Mm,
your partner? How can you be of help in any situation? If it's all about you, then you like lose everything if you're only focused on yourself.
right.
So you got to focus on, and I try to be like this with everybody where I focus on how can I help you? How can I serve you? And when I do that, then like I feel like my vibration is higher, everything's good. And when I start to think about myself more and become more
Yes.
selfish,
Mhm.
it's like in my romantic relationships, my every other relationships, I get like this low vibe and I'm kind of like, I'm mad at you about something. We're arguing over here. This isn't working out with this. And I used to live in that state and nothing ever worked out.
Mm,
And I don't know how I tolerated it for as long as I did. But yeah, this is the first relationship I've been in where it's been that kind of a partnership. It's been like a team. And it's probably why I ended up marrying her.
right.
Every other relationship I was in, after a few years, I'd be like, I'm getting tired of this.
Right.
This isn't really working for me." But it was mostly because I was focused on just my own pleasure seeking,
Yes.
my own desire to do whatever I want for me, and why aren't you doing what I want you to do all the time?
Mm.
And it was not good. But like I said, I wouldn't even hang out with the person I used to be.
Right. Yeah, so good. So much here. So many golden nuggets here today, John, and I really appreciate your time with us. And it's amazing really coming back to the relationship being your first mastermind and realizing that through giving, that's actually how we receive. And if we just operate our entire lives thinking about how much can I give, how better can I show up, what can I do for this person, it's just amazing what comes back without having to actually expect it or ask for it or ever feel like you're not getting it. So I 100% resonate with that. So, John, if people wanted to reach out to you and to connect with you, where could they go to do that?
I spend a lot of time on Instagram. It's probably where I'm mostly reachable. Like DM me, whatever, at realjohnsacco.com. It's pretty easy to find me. Um, kind of on Facebook, but that's more like a closed. I try to keep that more personal, but you could
Right.
still try and search me if I don't even know if I'm available there. But john-sacco.com. I have a website. And yeah, I mean, I'm on Twitter at realjohnsacco, but The main one is Instagram.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, John. I loved this conversation.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.